Welcome to another episode of the QNAMY Show. Today, we're honored to have Randy Lyman, an Inc. 500 entrepreneur, physicist, and author of the new book, The Third Element. Randy's journey took him from building successful companies to realizing that true fulfillment requires emotional healing and personal growth. Now he advocates for using emotional mastery, spiritual principles, and the law of attraction to unlock hidden potential and achieve genuine clarity and abundance. Get ready for the powerful insights into his vision of an emotional revolution and how embracing emotions can transform your life. Let's welcome Randy Lyman. Randy Lyman, welcome to the show.
Hello, Amy. So glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to dive in with you today. You've had some incredible success as an entrepreneur and physicist. Can you tell us a little bit about the pivotal moment when you realized that success alone wasn't fulfilling and what led you to shift your focus to emotional healing?
Well, it was kind of gradual until a big point, which I'll get to. In 1987, I had a point in my life where everything was falling apart and I just didn't know what to do. And I had started reading the Bible and I started looking for an answer that was bigger than my mind. And I was out for a walk at a park I'd never been to before and just talking to God in any way that I could. I didn't really know God at the time, but I said, I'm having a really hard time here. Please show me a sign, something. Well, I looked down and about 4 feet ahead of me was a four-leaf clover, and I'd never found a four-leaf clover before. So that was a turning point for me where I realized somebody is listening, somebody is watching. There is something bigger than myself out there that can help us through our tough times. That was when I kind of started on my spiritual path. And so I continued to read the Bible and look for any answer I could as to what is there that's bigger than us that I can work with. What can I interact with? What is there I can reach towards that'll reach back and give me some guidance, some calm, some peace. And then, about a year and a half after that, I was working in one of my locations, a differential repair shop in Redmond, Washington, and a woman came in, actually 35 years ago last week. I was 28 years old. I was looking for answers. I was frustrated. I was working as hard as I could work, 80 hours plus a week. I was studying all I could about business and sales and managing people and all that. And my life still wasn't working. I wasn't happy and I wasn't getting the results I knew were possible. It wasn't that I didn't have a good life, it's that I knew there was more. So on
Wow.
a sunny Wednesday, this woman, Maria, walks into my life, and I knew instantly that we would spend time together, and I didn't know why. And we ended up spending 3 years together. And so Maria enlightened me as to the other side of being human, the third element of being human, not just my mind, not just my body, but the emotional side, the spiritual side of being human. And that's what really had the biggest impact on my life.
Beautiful, and leads perfect into my next question, which is you're a newly published author. You've got a book coming out soon called The Third Element, and it dives deep into emotional themes of emotional mastery and spiritual principles. What inspired you to write this book, and how do you hope it impacts readers?
Well, what inspired me is the things I've learned over the last 30 plus years have really changed my life completely from being just a left brain logical thinker, which I still am, to a person who feels life completely, who is able to get through my challenges by dealing with my emotional wounds as directly as I can. It's not always easy, as people know, but through the changes I made in my life by addressing the emotional side of being human, I was able to improve my life in just quantum leaps, huge ways in my personal life and my business. My businesses did 30 or 40 times better when I took the principles I was learning and applied them. So as my life got better and I looked at the people around me and I interacted with people at work who I was able to give some help to and hold space for, it just was kind of sad to see so many people in the world who are not experiencing all they can. And after I had the change in my life that was so positive, I just wanted it for more people. And so I just said, maybe I should write a book at some point in time. And I started thinking about it. Now, I started thinking about it almost 20 years ago. I started thinking more seriously about a book 13 years ago, but I had a busy life. And then 4 years ago, I sat down and said, I'm going to write the book. And it took that long to put it all together in a way that reads smoothly and easily, and people can understand relatively complex concepts with real simple explanations. And now people can read the book and say, oh, I understand how God and the universe interacts with me, and I understand how I can interact with the world in a way that is just so much more fulfilling.
Beautiful. What are some of the things in the book that maybe are standout from some of the other concepts that resonate the most for you that maybe you could share a little bit more about today with our listeners?
Well, to either lean in, to dive in to whatever emotional pain we're feeling. And we are taught to avoid it. Society, our parents, everybody teaches us to avoid our emotional pain. And also our ego's job, our mind's job is to protect us from pain. So it's not easy to go into the pain, but the power lies within the pain. We have to reactivate and immerse ourselves in the original emotional trauma, whether it's a deep traumatic experience or whether it was something subtle. When we can embrace that emotional pain and feel it completely, and completely is the key word, and whatever way works, whether it's breath work, whether it's working out, whether it's punching a punching bag, whether it's walking in nature, when we can really find a way to feel that rather than avoid those emotional wounds, then we can heal them and improve our life in so many ways.
Do you have any recommendations for people who are struggling? It could be a variety of things. Maybe you could share an example of a struggle you were having in specific and give a little example of what work you specifically did to lean into that emotional pain and that wound as you talk about, relive that trauma if that's what you're meaning, and clear it out and heal it. It sounds like some shadow work is being done here.
Absolutely. And the shadow is where the power is because that is energy that resides within our being, whether it's in our body, whether it's in the space around us. We can't describe that with scientific terms, but we know it's real. For a lot of reasons, we
Mm.
know it's real. And the first release I had was a fairly subtle release. A friend of mine's grandmother was a massage therapist, and I had problems with my neck just from tension. That's where I hold my tension. And it really surprised me. I cried, I had tears on her massage table while she's working on me, and I was embarrassed. I was kind of felt shame, and I didn't know what was going on. But then, and a unhealthy attachment I had to a woman in my life at this time. This is way back before I really understood spiritual principles or was introduced to that. Suddenly, the attachment was gone, and I was more emotionally more clear and grounded, and it improved my life in a huge way. And that was a surprise. That one snuck up on me. I had my biggest epiphany I had many years later. I had in a 4-day workshop. It was about business environments and communications and how we're all different and how we're all unique. And on the third day, we went through an exercise called the 7 levels of truth. And one reason I went to this workshop is I was experiencing a lot of people around me who were just not competent. Their incompetence and their lack of caring and getting the job done was having a real negative effect on my business. And I was with Maria, and she said, everything's a mirror. You need to look at yourself. So I did everything I could to become more competent in my thoughts, more competent in my actions. And the situation around me was just getting worse and worse. So it was a surprise. I was at this workshop the third day. We partner up, and the partner starts asking me, okay, you have this issue. Why is this issue of competence a problem for you? And I went to the next level. Well, then we won't get things done. What if you don't get things done? Well, then I'll look incompetent to my customers and to my employees and people around me. Well, what happens if that? Well, then my business could fail. What happens if your business fails? Then I'll look like a failure in my family's eyes and my peers' eyes. What happens then? Well, then I don't know where to go. I feel helpless. My life is over. Okay, and then suddenly, bam, out of nowhere, this instance of somebody telling me 12 years before, I wish you were more like your friend John, a family member when they were drunk at a birthday party said, I wish you were more like your friend John. And what they meant was, I love you and I wish I could connect and I wish we had a deeper relationship. But what I heard was, I don't approve of who you are. And suddenly, when I got to that, just man, I just started bawling. The tears came out, the emotion came out. It was really a deep, moving experience. And because it was so pure, I had no shame around it, and all emotions are valid, so there's no reason for shame. So I went through this experience, and I went back to work the next week after returning from this 4-day retreat. And within 1 to 3 days, every person in my life who was incompetent either became competent, like a miracle happened, or they left my life. And so my brain, I'm a scientist, I'm a physicist, so I say, okay, cause and effect. I had this experience, and the effect was the competence that I was experiencing in the physical world around me went away because the issues around am I competent, the emotional wound I was holding on to was healed. It's like, holy cow, this is powerful. This is really something. So I started looking at the world through, with the eyes of a scientist, through the lens of law of attraction, with the focus, my focus being on how do emotions and unhealed emotions change the world around us.
Wow, as you're describing this, like I just relate to it in so many ways. As a military veteran, and somebody who I very publicly talk about my traumas, and I had a really horrible childhood, and I carried a lot of that into the military with me, and then of course the military just snowball effect that made things even worse. And so, when I left the military a couple of years ago, I really had a super hard look at myself in the mirror and just realized how bad I was doing. And I also think about my brothers and sisters in arms right now and some of the struggles that they're having, and our limited Western medicine view of here, take this Ambien and these sleep medications, and hey, get on these SSRIs and all of these antidepressants, and maybe go to talk therapy and get yourself in the VA system. You'll have an appointment next year. There's all of these. Rough approaches to dealing with these really deep wounds. And of course, as we know, a lot of military veterans have horrible childhoods. For a lot of military veterans, that's why they join the military. Same is true for our first responder community, the cops and the firefighters. They join those services because they want to be heroes. And often that comes from a complex that they develop from their childhood. And of course, I'm not speaking for everybody. So for any first responders, veterans, police officers that are listening to this that are like, no, I had a great childhood, amazing, I'm so happy for you. But there's so many of us, there's a lot of us that story is not the case for. And so, I have this show and I have these conversations in hope that we can help some people. And so I'd love to be a little bit selfish and, dive in more for myself, but also for those listening to this conversation today. Let's help some people. So, what is something you would recommend if someone's listening to this and like, man, I need to do this work? What's one thing you'd tell them to do to get started?
Be willing to feel the pain. We have to be courageous. We have to be go to a place where it feels like we're going to die, where it feels like the overwhelm is going to be too much, the pain is going to be too much, and we feel lost. If we're not willing to go to that place of feeling lost and surrender, we're not going to be able to heal. We cannot heal emotional wounds with our mind. We can't think our way through it. We can do physical activities that allow us to feel. When I put my hands on my heart, that's my heart and my solar plexus and my stomach's where I feel emotions come through. When I can be in the present moment, because my mind is distracted, the mind is never in the present moment. When I can be in the present moment and feel my emotional pain come through my body, I can heal it. Again, people tell us to avoid it. I'm telling you for 100% certainty, any irritation in our life, physical, mental, emotional, comes back to an emotional wound, comes back to a trauma, large or small. And the only way to get through that is to be willing to feel the pain. Now, there's a lot of different ways to go there. Breathing exercises, yoga, massage, walking in nature, working out, running, whatever that might be. But the challenge that I've had, I'll speak from my own point of view. I am a very capable, logical male. I am taught by society not to feel. I can tell you today, as a 63-year-old, very successful man, that the power lies within feeling that pain, crying the tears if necessary, letting that energy emote, leave our body. And that is not a simple thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not something that society says, oh, yeah, go feel your pain. But I can tell you from firsthand experience and from 30 or 40 people I've helped. I don't have a big practice, but I've interacted with a lot of people over the last years that I've been able to hold that space. When we feel the pain completely and release it, it's like storing gasoline. If we put gasoline in a can, it'll store for 10 or 20 years. That energy is still there. But when we're willing to open up that vessel and feel the pain, the emotion, and burn the gasoline, burn that energy and feel it, it's gone. You can't burn gasoline twice, and we don't have to burn through that emotional pain twice. One time completely, we'll let it go. Now, we may have other layers, we may have similar wounds, but when we're willing to feel that pain, then it's released, and love fills that space immediately. And
Mm.
courage and power and confidence and clarity feels that space that the emotional wound was feeling. So there are a lot of different modalities and exercises that'll work, but the most important part is to tell ourselves, to help our mind understand that the ego doesn't have to die. Like people say, ego has to die. No, the ego doesn't have to die. The ego partners with two things. The ego partners with our higher self through our intuition, the bigger part of us that is from God, which we all are, and the inner child, which is both creativity and joy and a lot of wonderful things, and at the same time where we hang on to that pain. So when we can find a balance and partner with our higher self, partner with our hurt inner child, and then our conscious mind is courageous enough to find a way to work by ourselves or with somebody who can guide us to get to the deeper pain. And I'll just say it flat out, cry the tears. We're human. Our emotions are valid. As men, I'm going to go on a little bit now, if that's okay.
Please go ahead. And I just have to, before you say what you're about to say, I just want to tell our listeners at home that are not watching the video content, Randy is sitting here like the ultimate man. He's got like a button up cowboy shirt. He's got a cowboy hat on. He's a very successful entrepreneur. So I can kind of sense where you're going with this. And I just want to emphasize, like, it is so important as men in today's society. We are constantly hearing messages that men need to be men and to be tough and to be almost like violent, like this aggressive style of being a man. And where Randy's going with this, like, it's so beautiful. And I just want to say, like, liberated is the soul which sees all human behavior as an act of love or a call for love. And it's a saying I saw yesterday online. And I know you're going to go into just the importance of releasing emotion as men, and know that, as a woman, I'm imploring you, yes, please do so. So please go ahead, Randy.
So every man has a masculine component and a feminine component. We're primarily masculine. We're men.
Mm.
And we're here to protect, to provide, and to build. Now, the creativity comes from the feminine side, but the action is still masculine. And if you go back in history, human history, just go back 2,000 years, that's nothing. The human brain's been evolving for millions of years. But if you go back 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, I, as a man, had to be able to fend off predators. And I'm not saying we do this today. I had to be able to kill another man with my bare hands to protect my family. I had to be able to do that. That was part of being a man. It's not part of today's society. It's not necessary. But those skills that we learned, those traits that we learned to be able to use aggression to protect ourselves and protect our family required that we turn off our emotions. So as men, it's instinctual. I can turn off my emotions in a moment and do what I have to do. And at times that's necessary. If I'm in a car accident and I need to turn off my emotions and focus and drive, if I'm in a situation where I have to protect somebody, then my emotions are not helpful in that moment. And so we as men are taught, turn off your emotions. Well, okay, in the moment. And we shouldn't make decisions. We should not make decisions based on our emotions. Our intuition comes through similar, and intuition is valid. But an emotional reaction is not a place to make decisions from. So as a man, we have to understand our emotions, turn off our emotions, regulate our emotions, make decisions without emotions. That's part of being a man. But I've found that the biggest successes that have come in my life and the biggest growth that's come in my life and the best business decisions the best business decisions that I've made come from the feminine qualities of the universe that I can tap into. I don't have to become feminine in order to access those tools and those traits and those powers. I can be a man and be in touch with my intuition. I can be a man and be compassionate. I can be a man and appreciate the beautiful things, the power, the creativity, the ability to see things from a woman's perspective. Those feminine traits are so necessary as a part of her life. And I can address those and appreciate those and embrace those and still be a man. So um, the emotions that we need to feel mean we have to get back into our emotions in order to heal those. And we can't just use our mind. We have to embrace that pain, and we have to do it using a feminine approach. Again, that doesn't mean that we're not men. It just means that we have to embrace that part of being human.
What it sounds like to me is almost like a balancing of the divine feminine masculine. And I'll just really quickly resonate my own story with that. Given my childhood, given I was in the military, I was very quote unquote masculine. I was embodying the spirit of warrior and independence. And, I've been a sole provider of myself since I was a teenager. And so I've been working nonstop and in the military, and I was over in Afghanistan and like doing these very masculine things. I mean, come to think of it, even the uniform I wore was masculine. It was a men's uniform. I'm wearing men's boots and men's clothes, and very, very masculine. And that was so detrimental to me. I lost all my femininity. I lost the nurturing. I lost the loving. I lost the softness. I've been known to be very vocal and boisterous and aggressive. And this balancing act is so essential. Where I'm at with my own healing is, 2 months ago, as I share with my audience here, I went to a healing plant medicine retreat, and it was the first time in my life that I had surrounded myself with other women. I went through with 10 other women through this retreat, and I didn't want to be with the women when I went. I had this strong aversion to hanging out with other women. It was a turnoff for me to want to go because I knew it was going to be other women. And I went reluctantly. When I showed up, I had this really negative attitude about, these women gossiping and girly stuff. And, I didn't want anything to do with it. And during my plant medicine, I sat with psilocybin, and I had a really deep mother wound where I didn't get nurtured as a child by my mother. And so that was where the aversion to femininity came in. And that's why I didn't want to be with these women, and why I've struggled with female relationships my whole life and embodying my own femininity. And so when I was able to heal that wound by leaning into the plant medicine and seeing that and feeling that and experiencing it, I came out of that surrounded by these female facilitators that were watching me while I was going through the medicine. And there's 4 or 5 of them there, and they were giving me water and literally braiding my hair and mothering me and loving me and nurturing me and bringing me out of the medicine. And since then, I'm getting goosebumps. I proactively am seeking out female relationships and female communities and female spaces. And it's that great balancing act of it's okay to be both masculine and feminine. They're divine. It's the yin and yang. It's the divine. I don't know how else to say it besides the great balancing of both.
It's really a
it's
dance.
A dance. Yeah. And so since I have healed, and I'm still healing, but since I've healed a large part of that mother wound, I'm finding I'm so much happier. I'm so much lighter. I'm so much more in my true authenticity and who I'm supposed to be. So I love everything you're saying right now. This is powerful.
It's a challenge to be human, but I'm a big believer in reincarnation, and I believe before we decided to come down here into a body and go through this experience, this game that I call it, we looked at the brochure. We looked at the brochure and said, oh, rejection, that looks like that'd be interesting. Physical challenges, that'd be interesting. Whatever it might be. We said, yeah, let's go do this. This will be fun. Well, then we get down here and we forget that these challenges are a gift. We forget that we are connected to divine source. We forget how powerful we are, and we're lost in the game. It's like go into the movies and the hero's about to be killed and we get excited. No, no, no. Okay, well, it's just a movie. Why should I get excited? For our soul, this life is just like a movie. It's just a game. Now, to our personality, it's really important to me that I'm healthy and I'm safe and I have a happy life. But from soul's perspective, it's just a game. And when we remember that, we can say, okay, I'm having challenges here. Help me. Angels, guides, God, our soul, whatever we turn to that's larger than us, they're here to help us. And part of the game is to remember the answer is bigger than us. The answer is not within us. We have to surrender in order to find a solution, not give up, but to surrender to something bigger than ourselves.
Mm. Let's talk about the body a little bit more. Something you said earlier in our conversation, where you were discussing having a massage, and there was like this emotional release that followed the wound that you experienced from a partner that you had recently separated from. Let's talk about that because I think one of the things that people don't really understand is there's a beautiful book called "The Body Keeps a Score." I'll hyperlink it in the episode notes
Yes.
below. I just started reading it. I'm actually not even done with the book, but the concepts are so interesting. And it's something that we fail as a society, especially a Western society, to discuss and to talk about and to educate people about that. The emotions, especially the really strong ones, they store in your body, they store in your fascia, they store in your system. They don't just go away. Energy can never be destroyed. It can only be shifted in one way or another. And so,
Transform.
if you're, yeah, transformed. So if you're finding yourself in pain, if you're finding yourself tight, tense, you brought up some great examples earlier about that, the anxiety, the overwhelmed feeling where your system's overloaded. It may be that you need to do some body clearing work. And so talk a little bit more about that. I mean, you already shared one great example, but I just would love for you to dive in from your perspective of a little bit more about that.
So I go into this in depth in the book, and right now I'll keep it really brief. So if we look at our experience here on this planet, everything falls into one of three categories. The first is, for me, they're not in any particular order, but the first I like to talk about is our mind. Our mind, thoughts, information, that guides us. That's how we watch our experience, even if it's our physical and emotional experience. That's how we guide ourselves. And second is the physical reality that we live in, our world, the physical world, the body, etc. And the third element, the most powerful one, is the power of our emotions and our emotional experience, both pain and suffering and joy and love. Okay, both aspects, positive and negative aspects of our deepest experience are emotional. So our mind is not able to think through thought in the present moment. Our thoughts, now our observation could be in a moment of time, a snapshot, but our thoughts have to stream like music. If I look at music on a page, it means nothing. Music has to play out over time. Our thoughts play out over time. They're never in the present moment. Our body is only in the present moment. And why that's important is because our emotions that we experience come through our body, we feel them, and the emotions that we need to heal, our old trauma wounds, come through our body. So as long as we are in our mind, in the outside of the moment, in the past, in a stream of thought, in the future, we're not aware of our body. So when we can become aware of our physical body through massage, through tapping, I love a lot of different exercises where our mind is involved, but our focus and our awareness is in our body, then the old emotional wounds can be re-experienced and released. So our mind will never allow us to do that. So for me, the massage, replace a massage, whether it's Thai massage or deep massage or just anything, where our body is able to kind of relax and then we can feel our body, then the emotions can come through. And there are some massage practitioners, Thai massage, for example, is very effective at that. And so the physical experience is absolutely necessary before we can have emotional release.
Mm.
Did that answer your question?
It does. It does. It's just so beautiful. I mean, unless you've, personally experienced a great release like that, it's hard to put into concept. But I just definitely encourage you at home, if you're struggling with pain anywhere in your body, disease, issues like that, try some of this emotional work. Try some of this deep release work, and just see. You got no harm in trying. You can only get better, right? So, so give it a try.
So two things that work for me. One is I talk to God, the universe. I don't know what form they're in, but I talk and I get
Mm.
response. So that's all that matters. So I say, surprise me in a place where I'm safe and the time is right for me to have an emotional release. Because my mind has to be surprised. I say, surprise me, bring it through. I'm willing, because we have free will. We can say what we want from the universe. I
Yeah.
say, I'm willing to have this emotional release. Help me do it in a place and time where it's safe. Surprise me. And then the other thing, that a trick that works for me, is when I know I'm going to feel the pain and I don't want to feel it, and my mind is saying, I don't want to feel this. I tell myself, I'm willing to die. Now, I'm not encouraging that we put ourselves in a position where it's dangerous. I'm saying, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to go through this. And when I tell myself I'm willing to die, my ego laughs at me and says, you're not going to die. Bam, it breaks the tension just like that. Because we know we're not going to die, but we know it's going to feel awful. And so that's a trick I use for myself, is say, again, not doing any physical harm or intending any physical harm. I just say, whatever comes, I'm willing to deal with it, even if it's death. And then my ego responds with saying, no, that's silly. And then my guard is let down. And letting down our guard is the hardest thing for emotional healing, finding a place where we let down our guard.
Wow. Two thoughts that are popping up strongly for me right now. I went to the plant medicine retreat I was alluding to earlier, and one of the days we did BUFO, 5-MeO DMT. I just published an episode about this deeply with an expert, Dr. Martin Ball. For those of you that want to explore the topic more, there's another episode that you can watch about it. But one of the things that happened during that experience is when I took the medicine, my mind went to this place where I was thinking I was dying. I was literally moving towards the light. And I had a moment where the ego Amy, the conscious Amy, was like, oh my gosh, I really did it this time. Crap. I didn't mean to kill myself. Like, I'm literally dying right now. And I started panicking, like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Right. I thought I was going to die. And then something in me was like, just let go. Just let it go. And so I took a deep breath and I was like, if this is me dying, here I go. I'm just letting it go. And as I let it go, I lost consciousness at this point. Like, I didn't know what was happening, but I have this video. Thank goodness I recorded it, because man, I have the whole story now. And when I watched the video back, so for those of you that are listening that are not familiar with 5-MeO DMT, what happens is it's a 15 to 20 minute long experience. Your mind basically shuts off and your body does things that are very releasing, as we're talking about here. It's a great release of anything stored in your body. So you don't know what you're going to do. You might cry, you might scream, you might yell, you might say, exclaim something that you've been hiding. It's just basically this great release of energy. Well, for me, it was screaming. I was terrified my entire life. Since I was a teenager, fully on my own, I have just screamed. And what was happening was I was releasing all of the fear that I have been facing since I was a kid. And when I was in the military, releasing all of that fear. I mean, blood curdling screams. And I had my knees held up in a position against my body, kind of like I was giving birth. And it was just so much pain, so much trauma, very similar to an exorcism, just leaving my body. And I had a second round of the BUFO. And during that experience, again, I moved towards the light, but it was like I had to trust myself. I had to let go so I could release the fear and the trauma. And it was this lifetime of just every single time I was flopping on the ground, just no, like just sobbing, just again, more fear being released. And so when I came out of that experience, I have never felt so light and love and light in my life. Like, I just felt so airy and I could breathe so deeply for the first time in my life, having finally released the trauma that was stored in my body, the fear, the feeling of being scared my entire life. And so I really wanted to share that, just because I can't emphasize enough how insane it is, the amount of trauma we store in our bodies, and how important it is to get it
Well,
out.
and I missed that when my explanation of the mind and time and the body in time, the body only being the present moment. Emotions know no time. Emotions are bigger than time and space. They are a connection to the divine, and they are a challenge here on the physical planet. But if I experienced an emotional trauma 60 years ago and I didn't experience it and release it completely, that energy is still stored. And when I re-experience it today, it feels like the exact experience I had years ago. So it knows no time. It just waits for us. Those emotions just wait, and they store. They can cause health issues. They can cause, well, they can cause health issues, but really the law of attraction is obligated to remind us of those wounds because God wants us to heal. God wants us to be happy. God wants us to feel good. And if we're hanging on to that energy, then the law of attraction is obligated to bring irritations into our life that will remind us of the original wound. Now, they won't always take the same form or look the same as the original wound, but that is the intent and the gift of the irritations we feel in our life today.
It's just that the saying hurt people comes to mind right now, right? Where, if you have trauma of any kind, often we find we have guards up, we're defensive, we are short, we are quick to anger, right? Like there's these things, as you're mentioning, these irritations, these frustrations that pop up in your life where you're not able to look people in the eyes. You're not able to connect truly because you've got this shell that's formed around you over time. So it's really important to clear that out. I want to talk a little bit about the law of attraction. So you and I discussed this on a separate call just briefly, and I was so interested because you have a really unique approach to it. So tell me about law of attraction, Randy. What does that mean for you, and what are your teachings for us today?
Well, from my experience and my observations, God only interacts with us in two ways. One is love wins. Love, good, whatever it is, wins. So when we turn to doing good and we turn to responding in love, then that wins. That works. It always works. And then the second way that God in the universe interacts with us is through the law of attraction, through the three categories, the three elements of being human. So our thoughts create the world around us. They're not always directly mirrored back, but our thoughts have a direct impact on how the universe creates. The law of attraction creates our world for us. Our actions, how we treat our body, how we treat the world around us, what we do, that tells the universe, through the law of attraction, what we're looking for in our life. And the law of attraction brings us a mirror in some way of our physical actions. And for me, most importantly, whatever emotions we are feeling or were stored that we haven't felt completely and released from the past are mirrored to us from the law of attraction. So if I'm feeling gratitude, gratitude is a great cheat code. If I can sit down and journal, journaling is powerful, and write down the things I'm grateful for, just stop and feel the small things that I'm grateful for and truly tune into that, then that feeling of gratitude, feeling emotion, gets mirrored back to me by the law of attraction. God says, you're feeling grateful, I'll bring you more things to feel grateful for. And at the same time, if I have an old emotional wound from the past, say I'm 8 years old and I break my leg and my mom says, walk it off. You got to be a man. You can't feel this. Well, I broke my leg. I'm 8 years old. It freaking hurts. And so I stuff that emotion. That energy's still there. And the law of attraction says, I want you to release that. So it'll bring us whatever it is, somebody judging us like our mother judged us then or our father judged us then. It'll bring us a physical pain. It'll bring us whatever it can to remind us to reactivate that old emotional wound so we can release it. So if I'm thinking really clear thoughts and I'm healthy and taking care of my body and I'm respectful of the environment around me and I'm trying to manifest what I'm looking for, large, small, or otherwise, then those two parts of my being are in resonance with my goal. But now I have this emotional wound. It's like throwing a wet blanket over a tuning fork. My mind wants to resonate at the goal. My actions want to resonate at the goal. But I have an old emotional wound I need to heal. God is going to bring me, through the law of attraction, irritations in my life to bring me to a place where I can reactivate that emotion. And so for me, that's the most powerful part. Hundreds of wonderful, amazing people talk about thoughts in the law of attraction. People talk about our body and health and treating our world, our physical world with respect. But the part that is just now being addressed is how do my emotional wounds interact with the law of attraction to create my world for me? And they do. I could guarantee 100%. Any irritation, any physical irritation, any mental irritation, any emotional irritation is an opportunity to reactivate and heal an old emotional wound. Does that answer your question with the law of attraction?
Oh man, it sure does. Yeah. And, I'd love to hone it in a little bit further with some of the things that people typically want for themselves. So, money, obviously, financial abundance is something, love, right? Manifesting a relationship, partnership, their soulmate, maybe even work opportunities or other common things might be, friendships, etc. So, how do we, after we have done the work to clear out some of those deep emotional wounds and the shadow work, what does it look like? What's your advice to someone who's trying to manifest some of those common themes that we like in our lives?
Deservedness is probably the most common theme for any human being. So we are a combination of physical human and a spark of source, divine source energy. We are both. If anybody wants to argue that, fine, go ahead and argue. Let's put your doubts aside. Suspend your doubts for the moment. And think about how beautiful we were when we were children and we came in here. We're innocent. We're these just beautiful, beaming beings who are full of light and energy. And then we have to learn the rules to fit in with society and our family and everything else. And we have to be human. And we learn through the way people interact with us and what they tell us, what the way they act about themselves, that we're not deserving, that we're not spiritual beings, that we are less. And so in order to manifest, we need to work through the emotions around our deservedness and let go of the BS that people taught us about ourselves, that we're less than, that we're not deserving, we're not strong, we should sit in the background and shut up. So we have to let go of that. And usually there are emotional wounds that cause us to hang on to that. And so the deservedness is one part to address because we're all deserving of love and health and a wonderful life. We are deserving of that. I don't care who we are or what we've done, we can find our way back to love and a wonderful life. And at the same time, if I'm having ideas about wealth and I'd like to be in a better financial position to take care of my family and help my community, but I have wounds around worthiness, different than deservedness, but similar. Worthiness, or people say money is bad, and my parents say the only way they made money is by lying and cheating and stealing. And then I've got this emotional feeling around money is bad. So my thoughts are clear, my actions are clear about wealth, but I have these emotional wounds that are contrary to my thoughts and my actions. Those wounds need to be healed before I can be clear enough to really attract to myself what I'm looking for.
I apply that. So I'm a single woman. And so I'm speaking to the ladies in the audience and the gentlemen too, of course. But I just did some major work and I'm taking your advice so seriously. So I think it's very serendipitous that we're having this conversation because it's naturally something that I've been working on over the last couple months myself. I realized that what I was looking for was a soulmate, of course. We all want a soulmate to find our true twin flame, our person. And I was looking in all of the wrong places, and hanging out with, while I was looking, the entirely wrong people for me. So I was entertaining relationships with people I didn't really want to be with, that I knew weren't right for me. I was, around people with low vibrations, who were drinking all the time, partying, and did not represent or reflect the life that I actually wanted for myself. And so I've taken this big risk over the last couple of months where I have put myself in a cocoon and I've cut off all of the old relationships, all of the old environments I was in. And I'm just trusting the process that, and I obviously I'm not on the other side of it yet where I haven't met my soulmate yet, but, I'm trusting that doing this work here to clean out old energy, old thoughts, old beliefs, old patterns, old ways of operating, allowing people into my time, space, and energy that don't reflect the things that I actually want, the end state, to depart them from my space. I'm trusting that this work is going to be the great beacon of light, the lighthouse for my actual partner. And I'm finding that to be true in other ways too. So as an example, um, I've been attracting coins lately, where I'm finding pennies and dimes and nickels absolutely everywhere in the most craziest places, in the most craziest times. And that's because I'm asking, daily for financial abundance, but I'm also giving it away as well to other people. And so I'm reflecting to your point about deservedness, like, do you deserve it? What are you doing to attract it and to get it back? What are you putting out there to get it back? So I've been experimenting with this law of attraction and being deserving of it, and having the space and the room for it myself. So I'll keep you all posted, you listeners at home, when I meet my soulmate, if I to really prove my theory correct here. But I do just encourage, especially the women listening, if you're spending your time, and the guys here, if you're spending the time on the wrong type of people, it might be your sign to do some self work and to clean up and to clear out your energy and your space so you can actually get back what you want.
So something I get into in the book a little bit, and I've seen this for many years, and now it's becoming part of uh, uh, modern quantum physics. It's been in quantum physics since 1930, but we're starting to understand it from a deeper perspective. And energy does not become matter or take form, even a form of maybe light is energy, but any form, physical form that energy attaches to or becomes involved with or interacts with does not become that until there is an observation. This is based on Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And so our world at a quantum level, we're made up of trillions and trillions of particles and an astronomical number of electrons and protons and all. Our world moves forward one step at a time in the smallest increment of a second and becomes what it needs to be for our greatest good and learning and experience. So the world is quantum around us in the way that it's undefined until the law of attraction defines it for us. So I could have been in a different studio today. That reality exists. My thoughts and my actions have taken me to right here. And so I'm here. I'm glad to be here. This is fantastic. But I am here with you because our messages are similar, our growth paths may be similar, and because our audience is similar. And so law of attraction says all these infinite possibilities exist and the energy will come into fruition for you the way you need it to be. So law of attraction is guiding us every step of the way based on our thoughts, our actions, and our emotions.
Perfectly said. And it also segues me perfectly into my next question, which, as a physicist, do you see any parallels between the laws of physics and the concepts of emotional healing and energy? And I know you just talked about that a little bit, but I would love for you to dive in just a little bit more, because I know there's a lot of people listening who, Joe Dispenza is a great example of this. When you hear it scientifically explained, it makes more sense for so many people. It's hard initially when we're at the doorway of spirituality and we haven't quite opened it yet. We probably haven't even put our hands on the door handle yet, because it's a new idea for us. A lot of us are not religious or spiritual in nature, and this is definitely something that takes time to understand before you step through that doorway. Tell us a little bit more scientifically about how these principles apply.
Absolutely. So in science, in physics, at the deepest level, everything is energy. And anything that we're doing, even engineering and such at higher levels, it's all energy. And so we talk about energy when we talk about metaphysics and emotion and things like that. If you go back to just pure physics, we have four forces we deal with in the universe. We have gravity, which is an energy we don't really understand, but we can label it and work with it. We have electromagnetic force, which we understand really well, and we work with that every day. We have weak nuclear force, how protons and neutrons are held together. That's energy, and we can work with that in nuclear reactions. It's not a daily part of our life, but it's there. And then we have strong atomic energy. It's just how do the particles within a proton or a neutron hold together to create the proton or neutron. So as deeper we go, deeper and deeper and deeper, it's energy. It's all energy, and it becomes, in a way, more abstract, but we know it's real. So our emotions are energy. When we experience something where we need to be attracted to it or attracted away from it, we have an emotional reaction. Our mind says don't do this or do that. It says what to do, but we still hold the instinctual place in our instinctual brain of emotional reaction. And though every emotion is valid and it's it's to it's designed to guide us in the moment, not guide us long term, to guide us in the moment towards something or away from something. Well, that's an energy we feel in our body because we're human beings and we evolved emotionally before we evolved intellectually. And so that's still a valid process that happens. And I start to feel this emotion. And if I'm a duck, Eckhart Tolle uses the example of two ducks who are getting a little fight and a little squabble, and they just let it go and they go away. They don't continue to think about it. They let it go. They experience it completely. If I don't experience it completely, then I hang on to that energy. Now, I can't tell you what kind of energy that is, but anybody out there understands when we feel something emotionally, it's energetic in our body. And that energy, that emotion knows no time. We either experience it completely now and let it go, or we hang on to it in our being, in our body, that causes health issues, and our being that the law of attraction responds to by bringing us irritations to remind us of. That energy is real. And so the thoughts that we think have a vibration, the actions that we take have a vibration, and which is all energy. The vibration is vibrational energy, and our emotions have a vibrational energy. And even though I can't measure it, I know it's real. Just like I can't measure a magnetic field, but when I use the compass, I know it's real. Just like when I operate my car, I don't understand how all the different electromagnetic processes and mechanical processes are taking place, but I know they're real. Our emotions are energy, and they're real, and they are a vibration, because everything at the deepest level of science is represented by a vibration.
What I love about this too is, we talk about whether we believe something or not. And it's like you can't see air, right? But we know it's there. We can't see gas, but we know it's there. We can't see gravity. We know it's there. But having these feelings of emotions, we often think of them as like really bad things, especially in today's society, like being a woman, or even as we've been talking about being a man. Either way, emotions are bad. Women are overly hysterical and cry all the time, and it's ridiculous, and they're neurotic, right? Women used to be thrown in mental health wards, and be labeled hysterical back in the day, and brushed to the side as like having these negative emotions that need to go away. And men can't be emotional, right? They either get too angry. It's like they'd rather see you angry than see you sad, or expressing love, right? So I want to talk just briefly, as we're wrapping up here, about the power of love and how it's the key emotion, and the thing that really drives the universe, and how important love is to not only our healing, and to enlightenment, but just how we can extend it outwards, the way if we feel it truly to our bones, to our core, when we're meditating. If we can, what does love feel like? If we can really hone that power, what can we do with it?
Well, first of all, love is our natural state when we get the pain out of the way. When we heal, when I have an emotional release, small or large, especially the big ones, I feel the love come in and replace that in my being immediately. And so it's our natural state. I learned something. This is a interesting story that I tell once in a while. I'll tell it today. I was in my mid 20s. I was working a lot till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I had a differential repair shop. I repaired automotive and truck differential. So I'm working late, and my shop is in a neighborhood where there are some auto wrecking yards where they have uh, wreck cars and sell used parts and stuff like that. So I'm drinking. I have a few beers. I had a fight with my girlfriend. I'm angry, and I'm just out for a walk, and I'm pissed off. And I walk by a wrecking yard where they had a dog, a junkyard dog, and this dog came out. It saw me. It's angry. It's barking at me. It came at me, and because I'm not thinking, I'm just emotional. I get angry and I start screaming at the dog. I'm not clear. I'm drunk. I'm drinking. I had a couple of beers, and I start screaming at the dog, and the dog's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," and it backs up. Like, holy cow, when I don't show fear, the dog doesn't respond to fear. Well, then the next day I'm sober and I'm thinking about it. And I thought, okay, when I don't show fear, the dog doesn't respond in fear. Let's take it a step farther. Let's get centered, calm, breathe. And my brother taught me this technique even before I was into spiritual things. Breathe, be aware of your breath, and be centered in your heart. So I center in my heart, and I send love out to any dog I meet. Suddenly the dog transforms into just sitting down happy or comes up to see me and lick my hand. And that animal who responds emotionally could feel the love that I send out. So if I go into a meeting, I learned this and expanded on that, of course. If I go into a meeting where somebody is taking a position that's contrary to my position, I visualize ahead of time what I want to see and what I want the outcome to be. I send them love ahead of time from a place of centeredness in my body. And when I'm face to face with them, even if they are aggressive, I breathe and I send them love, and everything changes.
Wow, I'm just so excited about this concept. I'm going to try it. Right now, this is kind of silly, but if you live in LA, it's so true. Sitting in traffic and, if you're struggling with having road rage, like a lot of us do, I'm going to try that exercise and see. I'll let you know how it goes. I'm going to try to send that person love in traffic instead of reacting the way I normally would. I think that, coming from a place of love is a new concept for me. I definitely never had it modeled for me. Throughout being a child and obviously in the military, that's the last thing anyone's thinking about doing is being loving. And so lately I've been playing around with love and, different ways I can use it. Obviously there's different kinds of love. And so getting to that state when you're feeling angry or some of the other natural ways that you can react when you're just so conditioned and so programmed to reacting. And it's almost always not from a place of love. So I'm going to try this a little bit more and report back. But amazing. Cool. Thank you. One of the last questions I'm going to ask you, I ask this of every single guest that comes on the show. The show that we have here is designed to help people struggling with mental health and to offer healing modalities for them to explore and see which ones work best for them and to help them on their healing journey. If you are, listening in the audience today and you're really struggling with mental health and you're not sure if you're going to see tomorrow, Randy, I just want to ask you, what would your advice be to the person listening right now that might be struggling? What would you tell them to do in the moment right now to start on their path to healing and to shake off their immediate feelings that they have right now?
Be willing to cry. As a man who's comfortable in the world with people who I used to think would judge me, I know that, first of all, they only judge me if I judge myself. And second, what I gain by feeling the deeper pain outweighs any consequences. There's no negative consequences to feeling our true emotions. So feel it, dive into it. It, it won't kill you. It'll feel like it will. But that pain will bring you peace. That pain will bring you clarity. That pain will bring you closer to the spark of divine source that you are. The God
Mm.
part of you that is real, that you may not believe is there, that you may say you're not deserving of. That's who you are. And when you feel the pain and you can cry the tears of the moment and surrender to that, love will rush in.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much. Randy, where can people find you? And remind us the name of your book again.
So the book is The Third Element, and they can find me on my website at randylyman.com. It's RANDYLYMAN.com for those who are listening and can't see the screen. And from there, they can connect with me on social media and YouTube and TikTok and such. But the website's the best place to start. The book will be out probably February, maybe March at the latest, and an electronic version will become available prior to the printed version.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today, Randy. We're definitely going to have you back again soon. Can't wait to read your book. I'm so excited for that. So I'll let you guys know where you can find it as well. Hyperlink everything below for those that are on YouTube here so you guys can see the show notes. Other than that, Randy, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, you're
Thanks for
welcome. Thank you,
listening.
Amy. Thank you for having me on. I love your work and all the great things you do.
Thanks for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed the episode, take a moment to hit the like button, comment below, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on a future episode. I'll see you next time.